Hello everyone, it's Jen. Welcome back to another project for Heffy Doodle. Today I'm using the Big Bug Hugs stamp set to create a fun little card that could be sent to brighten someone's day. So as always, we're going to start off with the coloring. I do mostly 3-color blends for the little insects here and our little bee and dragonfly. I will bring in multiple colors for the dragonfly though. So I have all of the colors listed that I'm using to the left hand side of the screen. The darkest color is at the top, moving down towards the lightest at the bottom. I will have a Copic color map at the end of this video as well that you can take a screenshot of. It is also on the Heffy Doodle blog post that corresponds to this video as well. So moving through the coloring here, I'm using a really nice green combination for my inchworm here, YG17, YG03, and YG01. Kind of keeping the darkest shadows underneath to the bottom of his body and then to the right hand side. Now you'll notice that for most of these little guys here, I'm actually bringing in my darkest marker and my mid-tone marker twice just to deepen up those shadows. So for the top half of the portion of the dragonfly, I'm using BG49, BG45, and BG01. You're going to see here, I'm going to bring back in those green colors from the inchworm, and I'm going to add those to the bottom of the dragonfly, and I'm going to blend the blues and the greens together. So for the shading on the dragonfly, I'm keeping it to the bottom portions of the various sections of his body. Here's where I'm bringing in those green markers, and as I move through, I'm pulling that green up a little bit more into the blue. So I started here with the lightest, moving through to the mid-tone and then the darkest. And again, now once I have all that green laid down, I'm actually going to bring in that lightest blue marker that I used, the BG01, and I'm going to blend that through to the green. Moving on to our little snail here, I started out using E44 and E43. I wasn't getting enough of a contrast, so I decided to bring in the E47, and you can see the difference that that makes. So I decided to have him be brown, and then I'm going to color his shell in pinks, just adding that darkest color again, and then pulling that out with the mid-tone one more time to get a nice smooth blend with that really nice highlight in the center. For the pinks, I'm using R85, R83, and RV11. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite color combinations for pink. Typically, I would use R81 instead of the RV11, but I really like how much lighter that RV11 is. Now, I felt like I didn't have enough contrast here in the shell, so I'm going to pull that R85, my darkest color, through a little bit more here, and then I'm going to blend that out with the R83. For the wings, I wanted to bring that pink color in, so I'm adding the R85 just very sparingly, and then I'm going to blend that out with the R83. And again, bringing in the RV11. And then I wanted to add some blue. So I'm using B00 and then B000, using those two blues as well for the wings on the bee. And I am going to blend that out with my colorless blender. And you'll see that gives a really pretty translucent look to the wings. So for the cheeks, I'm using RV11. For some of them, I will blend that out. For the snail, I came back and added that R83, I believe, just so that we could see the cheeks a little bit better. So I'm going to add some detail to these little characters. Today, we're going to mostly be talking about adding subtle details to your background, just to kind of give them that added little interest that's sort of a little bit unexpected. But I'm also going to add lots of details here to my critters. One of the ways that I like to do that is some dot detailing. So I'm bringing in the darkest color that I used for each of the critters, and I'm just gently dotting that with the very tip of my marker, Coming in then with the mid-tone and doing the same thing. I'm also going to add some black glaze pen to their eyes, which gives them a really cute raised effect. And then I'll bring in my white gel pen for some final details on our cute little inchworm and snail and bee and dragonfly. So you can see that just adds some nice highlights to the critters. I'm going to start working on the elements for my scene here. So for the grass, I'm using Distress Oxide in Twisted Citron. I'm just blending that on some Bristol Smooth cardstock. I'm going to use the Heffy Doodle Grassy border dies here. Didn't quite get that color to the edges, so I'm just going to bring that in a bit. I knew this panel was larger than an A2 size panel, but wanted to make sure that the color mostly went to the edges. So I'm going to trim the bottom of this off a little bit. I only wanted a small portion of grass to the bottom of my card. Now I'm going to work on the sky, and I'm using my blending brush here with the Distress Oxide in Tumbled Glass. I very quickly switched to this circular brush, which is so much easier for background. So I love my blending brushes when I want a soft look or on a smaller area. But I do like the traditional Tim Holtz brushes and these round brushes. This one here I just happened to get on Amazon when I want to cover more area. So here's the first way that I'm going to add a little bit of detail to the background for my card. So I brought out the Twinkle Twinkle stencil here, and I have just used some Heffy Doodle Memo tape there to hold down my cardstock to the stencil on the back. I'm bringing in some of that tumbled glass and just going over the little twinkly pattern here. I'm also bringing in some spun sugar. I'm going to use some of Picket Fence Studio paper glaze, and I wasn't quite sure the level of transparency. In the end, it's quite opaque, so you can't really see the pink. But if you don't want to use a glaze or like a glitter gel over top, the pink did add a really pretty effect. And as we're kind of looking for those subtle effects for the backgrounds, the mix of the colors was really pretty. So here's where I'm using the Snowdrop White. This is, like I said, the paper glaze from Picket Fence Studios, and this goes on like butter. It is so nice to work with. So I'm just adding this over top of my stencil here. And then I will make sure once I'm done to clean that up right away off my stencil and my spatula. I did let that dry for quite a while. So now I'm adding some detail to the little twinkles in my sky. I'm bringing in the RV11 Copic marker that I used. That was the lightest color for the pinks. And I went ahead and added it to the bottom left-hand side of all the little twinkles from the stencil. Then I took my Quickie glue pen, and I'm going to use some Lawn Fawn Prisma glitter here, and I'm going to add that to the pink areas that I colored on our background. So I'm just going to add this glitter, and this gives such a sparkly effect between the glitter and the glaze. It is so pretty in person, and talk about really kind of take your backgrounds up a notch. I mean, I love doing scene cards. I often do cloudy backgrounds, but I just wanted to do something a little different. So I did add that glitter to some of the images as well. The wings on our dragonfly and bee, and then also on the white portions of the mushrooms. So I did want to add a little bit more contrast into the grass here so it matched the ones that I colored. So I'm bringing in the mowed lawn and just adding some of that to the grass. As you can see, I also colored up some of the grass patches and the little flourishes that almost look like hearts as well. I colored those in pink, and then I added some yellow mushrooms as well. I wanted to bring in the yellow from the bee a little bit. I've gone ahead and I've adhered my grass to my background. So now I'm going to take one of the stitched rectangle dies, and I'm going to cut my focal panel here out using my manual die cutting machine. And now I'm going to go ahead and play with placement here for the little scene. So I am trying to space out the colors as much as possible. I thought I wanted these little grass hills to the front. You're going to see me here. I'm taking off all of those pieces that I've laid down, and I wanted to see what it would look like if I tucked those grass pieces behind the die cut one that I created, and I thought that that looked really cute. It's pretty hard to see most of it, but I do think it just adds another fun element to this background. So I am going to tuck my mushroom and that pink flourish behind my grass. You'll notice that I'm allowing some of the images to come off my focal panel here. This is because I've cut it down quite a bit from what my A2 size card panel will actually be. So this is a really nice way to have the scene kind of continue over the white border on the card base, which you'll see here once I start, after I get all of my little images in place here. So now that I sort of have my layout, I am going to add my images down with some liquid glue. I do decide to pop up all the little critters on some foam tape just so that they stand out on the scene. And you can see how pretty that background looks. I thought it would just be fun, almost like giving the impression of little insect dust or kind of like fairy magic, but there's no fairies. It's with dragonflies and little bugs, but I wanted to give that kind of fantasy look with this background, and I am really happy with how it turned out. So you can see here I'm balancing the left and the right hand side of the card with a mushroom and a flourish each. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my little critters. So I'm going to have the snail to the left hand side, the little inchworm moving towards the right. I'm going to add this tiny little mushroom here just to the other side of the inchworm. And that just balances out those mushrooms nicely, I think. I did need to adjust the inchworm a little bit, but then I get him in place. I did have one piece of grass left over, but decided to keep it off. I was going to add my bee and my dragonfly, and then I remembered that I wanted to add some of the swirly clouds to the scene. Again, this just adds another subtle detail to the background. I think bringing in the clouds really gives it that sky feeling, and then those little twinkles are actually pushed back even further into the scene and just look a little bit more magical. So I'm going to use 3 of the clouds here. I think these have to be my favorite dies from Heffy Doodle. I use them all the time. So now I can go ahead and add my little bee and dragonfly, and then I'm going to work on the inside of the card. So here you can see I'm going to add the panel onto my card base first, and I really love how that nice white border looks with the white clouds, and I think it looks great having a few of those little pieces hang over the edges. Now I didn't quite get it lined up straight, so before that glue adhered, I just lifted it up carefully and repositioned it. On the inside, I'm going to stamp "Sending You Big Bug Hugs," which I think is so cute, and who could resist this adorable little card if they got it in the mail. So to add another subtle detail to my background, I'm going to add this tiny little word "hello." This is from the classic Sentiments stamp set, and I'm actually kind of making this little sentiment part of the background by nestling it by the images and kind of almost having it hidden on the scene. So play around with your sentiments on your backgrounds and add some fun details. You never know how it might turn out. So here is the color map for you to have a quick look at all of the colors I used. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you really soon in the next one. Take care. Bye.